Have you been feeling a little off lately? Like there's something that just doesn't feel right when you wake up every morning and you can't quite put your finger on it. You know, like something needs to change, but you're not quite sure what it is. I know in the past I have felt that, like maybe I should cut my hair, which I did. Or maybe it's time to color my hair. Maybe it's time to go out and get a new wardrobe. Maybe, and you're trying to fill this gap, but you just don't know what that gap is. But you know something needs to change. So that's your sign. That is your sign that it is time to do something new. It is time to do something different. Maybe it is time to reinvent yourself. And that is what we're going to walk through today. Is now the time for you to reinvent yourself? And how do we know now is the time? And if it is the right time, what do we do next? That's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome back, everyone, to a Mindset Medicine podcast. I am your host, Catherine Lucadu, and I have been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. I have been an educator. I have been in social media marketing and loads of experience, including owning a real estate brokerage, and the list goes on and on. So I have reinvented myself over my 3 decades in business. And you know, what I actually find is maybe you can relate to this. It was really easy when I was younger. I mean, I really didn't give a second thought about, okay, well, this isn't working out, then I'm just going to try this. But somehow over the years and through experience and through life and responsibility, we tend to hesitate a little bit more as we get older. Have you found this? That as you get older, you're not sure if a change is really what you want to do next. And change is hard and it is scary because we are supposed to be responsible. We are supposed to be reliable. So, what if we decide that what we're doing right now just isn't aligning with who we are anymore? What do we do when you just have this uneasy feeling like, I just don't think this lights me up anymore. I don't think this is really what I want to do. But what if I don't know what I want to do next? That's what we're going to talk about today. So today's episode is going to be broken down into 5 parts. And I think it'll be easier for you to follow along if I do it like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about understanding the midlife dip and what it is, why it happens, why you're actually feeling like this right now. Maybe you're in your mid to late 30s. Maybe you're in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s. Maybe you're even in your 70s. And you are sitting back thinking to yourself, I think there is more to life than what I've been doing. And I actually want to start exploring that, but I'm a little scared and I'm really not sure what those steps are. So we're going to talk about that midlife crisis. And I guess I'm a little hesitant to call it a crisis because I don't think it needs to be a crisis. I think we are allowed to move into the next chapter of our lives. And somehow, at some point in history, we started looking for permission to do that. And I don't think we need permission. What I think we need is a clear plan. That's all. Because if you have that clear plan ahead, then there is no reason why you shouldn't follow what you feel like you're being called to do in this chapter of your life. So, number 2, so that's understanding the midlife dip. Number 2 is the emotional realization. That moment when you feel unfulfilled and you actually feel quite unhappy, and it is radiating to everyone else around you. That is when it's time to decide that this is going to be your turning point, and it is time to start reinventing yourself. Maybe you are just reinventing your business. Maybe you are reinventing your career. Whatever that looks like for you, maybe you are just reinventing where you are right now in your life, in a relationship. The emotional realization can be very difficult, and it can be challenging to come to terms with it. Like, why do I have to, I know when I went through it, here is what really disturbed me. What bothered me the most is I kept saying to myself, well, everything was fine. Why do you have to upset the status quo? And this is me, Catherine, talking to herself. But in my mind, I kept saying, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just be happy with what you're doing? So many people out there work in a job for 50 years, 40 years, and it looks like they're fine doing it. Why can't you do that? But then the other voice, which I think comes from God, is saying, come on, you know there's more. You know very well there's more to life. Look at all the different things you've done until now. Why would you stop here? So that's what goes through my mind. You are different, but you yourself know what it is that you need and where you need to grow to. So that's number 2. So that'll be an interesting little talk, but we're going to talk about. Number 3, facing the fear of change. This is a real thing, because if you have been doing something, if you have had a career for quite some time, maybe you've been running a business for many years in a certain way, and it has been going in a certain direction, or it's actually come to a standstill. And maybe in your mind right now, you're thinking to yourself, do I close this business? Do I leave this career? What if you're a lawyer? What if you're a doctor? How long do you stay in that career? We're going to talk about that today, the fear of change and how to confront that fear and start embracing this opportunity that you have to grow. We're going to go through the clarity process, and I'm going to take you through a step-by-step guide to uncovering what it is that you truly want next. Obviously, this takes much longer to walk through, and I have worksheets and so on with my coaching clients that we do this, but I'm going to give you the overview of things to think about. And number 5, now and what's next. So I'm going to give you some actionable takeaways, right? And I'm going to give you the link to a really fun quiz so that you can find out what your success superpower is when we're done with this episode today, with this session. So let's start. The midlife dip. What is this? So first, what it is, why does it happen? I want you to imagine the letter U, a capital U, right? So it starts up, goes down, and goes back up again. So the very top part of there, consider that to be a time when you feel happy and you are excited about what's going on and you feel challenged and life is interesting. Believe it or not, that is your late teens and early 20s when we're at the top of that U. As we come down that U, this is where you start going into your late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, and guess what? When you get to the bottom of that U, can you guess what age you are? You are likely between the age of 40 and 50. So the bottom of that U is your 40s and 50s, and then it starts to come right back up again. Sometime mid 50s into 60, 70, and so on, you're on the other side and you are going back up and you're happy and content and fulfilled. So the U-shaped happiness curve, that's what we're going to call this. And your satisfaction starts high, late teens, early 20s. it starts to get a little lower. It goes into that dip, 40s and 50s, and then it goes right back up again. So here's what I'd like you to know about your midlife dip. It is temporary. Okay. It is your sign that something needs to change in your life. That's all. It is just a sign. Whether you want to say it's a sign from God, whether you want to say it's a sign from the universe, that is up to you. But it's that little indication that something feels a little bit off, and maybe it's time to explore what that looks like for you. This is a natural experience. And believe it or not, it happens across the world, in every country, in every culture. So it is not country specific. It is not race specific. It is not gender specific. Most people between their 40s and 50s, possibly a little later, possibly a little earlier, start reevaluating. Is this where I want to be for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now? And that's where that dip occurs. So it's not a negative to be in that dip. It may feel like it is, and it's hard when you feel like you are struggling against what you have been doing, whether it's for 10 years, 20 years, 5 years. But when you get to that point where this now feels like a struggle, it's just a phase of reflection. That's all this is. You are being asked to pause and feel with your mind, your body, and your soul what it is that you actually want to be doing. It's a gift. Don't see it as a crisis. It is a gift. And if you use it as a gift, it's not meant to be drastic impulse changes, right? You're not meant to just go out, buy the sports car, go out, have an affair, or anything like that. We are so unused to sitting with ourselves when we have uncomfortable feelings. We are so unused, and really, I think it could also be, I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but sometimes it is the generation that you have grown up in where you just get on with things, right? Like, okay, so I feel uncomfortable, not really sure if I should do this. All right, well, you still have to go to work and do stuff. So life continues. And then you're either going to decide that you are going to make that change or you're not. But life doesn't actually stop while you're in that reflective phase. You probably feel restless. You probably feel unfulfilled. You could feel a little bit depressed. You may wake up in the morning not overly enthusiastic, but these are not bad things. These are simply signs telling you, why don't you just take a pause and start thinking about this? Why is it that you feel like this has happened at this point? Has something happened in your career? Or maybe not happened? Maybe you're not where you wanted to be. And is that a feeling for change? Or is that you setting your bar too high? Is that you setting the expectations of yourself too high? Or have you been fulfilling other people's expectations of you all this time? But maybe now you get to go into your own new chapter. So there is some research that has been done by Andrew Oswald from the University of Warwick. And the midlife dip is a global phenomenon, and it is not tied to a specific country, job, or income level, as I mentioned earlier. It is a psychological shift where you begin to reassess the meaning and direction of your life. And it's not surprising that we do this, because I think once you get to midlife, you have realized, one, that life is half over, And then you almost start to calculate, okay, well, how many years do I have left? Well, no one knows that. But if I were to stay healthy and stay active and keep my mind, active and positive and so on, do I have 30 more good years? 40? Could I make it to 100? So that is the second half of your life now, beginning. What usually happens by this dip, right? The midlife dip. Here's what usually happens. You start reassessing your career. You possibly feel stuck. Maybe you have been in a position where you have moved up the ladder to where you're probably going to end. So now what? And I think that this is a phrase that we start to say a little more often when we are in the dip. Now what? What comes next? Our brains are wired for growth, especially if you have a growth mindset where you love opportunity, you love trying new things. If you get to a point where you feel stuck, it is suffocating. And that will in turn create this ripple effect of other feelings you start to have where you're unhappy. Maybe you're looking to blame someone. Why am I in this situation? I didn't want to be here. Rather than going down that road, there was a study published in Nature Neuroscience, and studies found that when people stop learning and stop looking for new challenges and opportunities, the brain's reward system, which releases dopamine, actually begins to slow down. That's why you might feel like you're stuck right now, because you have a lack of dopamine in your body. If you cannot move on from where you are right now, okay, so let's talk about this for a minute. Reinvention. If you do not have the luxury of reinventing who you are right now, then if you were to take this study at its face value, where there is this psychological slowdown in your dopamine, the logical thing to do would be to start inserting challenge and opportunity in other parts of your life, taking up a hobby, maybe joining a group that you would never join, start public speaking, learn a new language. I don't know what that looks like for you, but if complete reinvention of your life doesn't really fit where you are right now, there are other ways that you can help yourself. I do want to mention, though, that a reinvention, it does sound like this massive overhaul, and it doesn't have to be. The way that I help coach with my clients is it's one step at a time. We don't just throw what we've been doing out the window, especially if we have created this wonderful career. But what we do is we start making moves toward the next chapter so that when we have it all ready and planned and a strategy, that is when we move over. We're going to talk about that when we get to the steps, but I did want to mention that. So here is a takeaway for you from the midlife dip concept. Ask yourself, when was the last time I did something that truly excited me? Something that challenged me and made me come alive. Like you literally felt so lit up. You felt so good inside when you did it. What was it that you were doing when that happened? And if you can recognize when you last felt that way, then you can start moving toward it. So let's go to part 2, the emotional realization of that turning point, right? So emotionally, you're at a place now. Maybe your health is declining from stress. Maybe you aren't sleeping very well because your mind is constantly in motion about what you want to do next. Maybe you no longer feel challenged, you're unfulfilled. Maybe you have decided that there is another passion and purpose that you feel that you have, and you want to start chasing that. The moment of clarity, when that feeling comes, can be really unsettling. And it's funny because it can feel uncomfortable and liberating at the same time. Because for a long period of time, you may have just felt like something was off. But then one day, maybe you're driving, maybe you're walking, maybe you're just washing the dishes, and you think to yourself, that's it. I just don't want to be doing that anymore. What I really want to be doing is this. That is your little moment of freedom and clarity. But then the next scary thought is, well, what do I do about that? How do I move to that next step now? What do I do next? I ran into a lady as I was walking into a supermarket about a year ago. And I've known this lady because she has been a lawyer, and I've had clients who have used her services over the years. So what's interesting is here we are, in the foyer of the supermarket, and we were just chatting about work. My office, because I owned a real estate brokerage, I was, in very close proximity. And so there we were chatting about, our plans and how has the year been and our future, where we're going, and so on. And by that point, I had closed my real estate brokerage and I was coaching more and doing other things. And she said, how is everything going with you? And I said, oh my gosh. I said, there is a newfound freedom that you feel when you start following what it is that you want to do. And she looked at me and she said, oh my God, that is what I'm going for now. She said, I can only do this another 1 to 2 years and I need to do something else. And then she went on to say, I would love to. And then she told me about a few things that she'd really like to do, including travel more, but also work remotely and so on. And I said, well, then do it. And she looked at me and she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, just do it. Well, what are you waiting for? Who are you waiting for to give you permission? And she stopped and she thought about it for a second. And she's like, you know what? You're right. She said, there's literally no one who's going to give me permission to move on to the next chapter of my life. I said, all you need is to have the clarity of exactly what you want to do. And then from that, you start to plan out what that looks like. And then the strategies come in, and then the tools come in. And that's what I coach people on. So what's interesting is, we sat there, we talked, not sat, we were talking there in front of the supermarket for half an hour. And she said, wow, okay, I am leaving this conversation completely changed. Thank you. Thank you for giving me that perspective where I don't need anyone's permission. But she said, I probably will come back to you because I really don't know what the next steps are. And that's the beauty of this, is that I do, because I've done this so many times. And those of you who have been in a career, owned a business, been in a job for a long period of time, you develop experience that is second to none. And you develop that experience through trial and error. I have done that with reinvention. I now can do it faster and with more success because I had to hit those walls and hurdles and so on. And I'm still doing it now because technology keeps changing, right? AI is in the picture. So how do we use AI as a tool to help us move to the next chapter faster? I have figured out all of those things. So this is what I help people with. So let's go on then to, you have that emotional connection now to this new purpose or passion that you have, okay? Just accept that. It's okay. You don't have to feel bad about it. The question is, what are you going to do with it? So now we go on to section 3, the fear of change. And I would say that most people are not very comfortable with change because they don't do it often enough. That's all it is. Change to me is like a muscle. If you practice with it, if you practice it, it will get stronger. That is what change is. Change becomes easier the more often you use it, you do it. The fear of starting over and the fear of failure and even the fear of judgment can be very overwhelming when you are at this point in your life where you think you might want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your life, reinvent your business. But here's what I've learned through my reinventions. And I want you to listen very carefully. You are not starting over. You are starting from experience. You are not at day one. You are much more fast forward in life than that because you've already had so many day ones in your life that now what you're going to do is you are going to gather all of the experience that you have created over the years. It's like you can gather it all into this box. And now this box is like a toolbox for you. What you're missing is the blueprint of those next steps out of the box. But you have the tools. That's why I created the quiz, the Success Superpower quiz, because I already know that you have a superpower. I know you do. You know you do. But let's go back and remind ourselves of what that superpower is. And I did create this quiz from a very well-known personality test. It's only 5 questions, but it will tell you exactly who you are. And you will be shocked when you do it and you see the result, because you're going to say, oh my God, that's me. How do I know? Because I've already been testing it on so many different people. And every one of them said, oh my God, it's like you were speaking to me. Once you know what your superpowers are, we use those and we move forward with a plan. There is a very famous psychologist, Carol Dweck. I don't know if you have read her book, but in her book, Mindset, she explains that people with a fixed mindset see challenges and changes as threats. And those with a growth mindset who want to keep moving ahead and leveling up, they see change as opportunity, opportunity for growth. So if you are thinking that you're ready for a change, then shifting to a growth mindset is going to be crucial for you. And if you're not sure how to do that, I have exercises to help you do that as well. So let's talk about the practical strategies of facing fear. Here is something I explain to my clients, that we are not trying to conquer fear all at once, all in one day. We are also not trying to overhaul your life, your business, or your job. This is I'm not going to say it's a slow process because not everyone likes slow, but it is a gradual process to move toward what it is that you want to do next. But it does start with clarity in knowing and deciding that you want to make a change. That is how we overcome fear. We do face it, but we also have to make a decision that we're not happy with what we've been doing. And our unhappiness supersedes that feeling of fear. That's all this is. Our unhappiness and our feeling of being stagnant and stuck overcomes our fear. So here is your actionable takeaway when it comes to fear of change. I want you to ask yourself right now, what is one small thing that I can do today that will move me closer to the life that I really want, that I truly want? What is one small step I can make to move me closer toward the life that I really want? The one thing that happens with fear is it can paralyze us. And it can paralyze us to the point where we literally do nothing. We don't make any changes. We don't get any growth. We don't even bother learning anything new. We're just stuck in that one place. And you don't have to be there. There are always options forward. And I want to help you move forward if that's what you're craving in life right now. So let's move on to the exciting part, section 4, a step-by-step guide. Clarity does not happen overnight. It is a process. Imagine an onion, okay? So right now you have this feeling like something needs to change. You're not happy with the way things are. You feel stuck. You feel unhappy. And you really want to feel joy again. Like you really crave laughing and smiling and feeling joy, but you don't feel like that right now. And you may not be happy with where you're at right now. So imagine you're peeling back the layers of an onion. With each layer you peel is you becoming more honest with yourself. And imagine how many layers of that onion you would have to peel to finally find what truly is going to drive you forward. 15, 20. And this process may happen over a week. It may happen over 2 weeks. It may take you a year if you're doing it on your own. But what if you had someone helping spark those questions to ask yourself? What if you had someone who was guiding you? That is worth its weight in gold. Because if you can move on to where you truly want to be and where you feel like you're meant to be faster, then why wouldn't you want to do that? So, step 1, here's your first step. You're going to confront your discomfort. First, you're going to acknowledge that you don't feel good right now, and maybe you're feeling a little sad or depressed, or you're just not happy. You're just not happy where you are. And you want to get out of that rut. You feel like you're just stuck in motion. So how do you move forward? You need to ask yourself, what's really bothering me? And this is where you start to become really honest. It's not your kids. It's not your husband. Go deeper than that. What's really bothering you? And being honest with ourselves can be very difficult because sometimes we actually don't want to hear our answers. When I was contemplating leaving teaching, when I was contemplating leaving my real estate or, closing my real estate brokerage, each different time that I have decided to make a transition that was large and detrimental to my future, I had to sit down and I would start writing lists. What do I like about this? What don't I like about this? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I feel called to do? Maybe you don't feel called to do anything right now. Maybe you really don't know. And I've been at that place as well. Like, what do I do next? I've been doing this for so long, I don't know what I should do next. But I don't think that's actually true. I think that there is a part of you, knowing who you are and knowing what lights you up, that you do know what's next. But maybe you just don't want to speak it. So if you don't want to speak it, write it down. Put it on a note on your phone and just leave it there. But the interesting thing, when you take a thought out of your head and put it in writing or on your phone, something magical begins to happen. And you start thinking about it a little bit more like, did I actually just write that down? And could that actually come true? Could I really move in that direction? I mean, is it possible? And I'm here to tell you 150% it is possible for you. As long as you have a plan, you have a strategy, and you know the direction that you want to go. That's what you need right now. That's it. But first, you've got to get really clear on what that looks like. So the next step, number 2, is to define your core values. What is truly important to you? What truly matters to you? Is it creativity in your life? Is it freedom? Is it finding your purpose and your passion? Is it making an impact in other people's lives? Is it volunteering? Is it giving back? I don't know. Is it creating a product? These are only questions that you can answer for yourself, but it is a question that's important. So, what are my values? What do I value in life? And especially going into the next chapter of my life, what do I need at this point in my life right now? What am I seeking? Who do I want to surround myself with? What kind of people? What do I envision for myself? There has been research in positive psychology that shows that when you are living in alignment with your value, your purpose, you will begin to feel completely fulfilled. You will begin to feel joy again. You will no longer feel like you've got this weight hanging over you. I mean, isn't that how we're supposed to be living life? Without that heavy weight on us? And step 3, I kind of mentioned it in step 2, and that is to take 5 minutes each day and visualize what your ideal day looks like. And I actually have an exercise that I use with my clients from start to finish. Here's what I would love you to do. Pen and paper or on your phone or walk around and dictate into your phone. But I want you to close your eyes and I want you to envision from the moment your eyes open in the morning, what would the ultimate best day look like for you? What are you doing? Where are you? What sounds do you hear? Is there anyone else there? Maybe you're not exactly in the location you are now. Maybe that location is different. But what happens is when you start visualizing, it almost starts to become real for you. Like, yes, this could actually be possible for me. Take the time to see it, because if you see it, you may actually believe it for yourself. And we are on our last part, which is now and what's next? What do you do next? So we've talked about why you're feeling this way. We've talked about some steps to overcome feeling this way. So now, how do we understand? So if you have come to some type of realization, if you have now come to a little bit of clarity after this session with me today, what are the steps to making that crystal clear? So you have this idea floating around now, right? You've got this purpose. Maybe you have this passion and you've got some ideas floating around. How do we now focus and turn that into action? We are going to go back to either writing with a paper and pen, preferably. Did you know that the moment you start writing something, there is a connection between, and I know this from when I was a professor, there is a connection between your hand and your brain, that as you are writing, it is kind of being imprinted into your brain, which is why I used to tell my students all the time, write. When you're trying to pass an exam, rewrite the questions, write the essay answer. Do it because it's going straight into the neurons in your brain. So, number one, write down 3 things that are making you feel unfulfilled and 3 things that you crave out of life. So 3 things that you feel are unfulfilling or are draining you in life right now. And I want you to write 3 things that you crave out of life. Like, oh my God, this is what I truly want out of my life. Write those down. Now, number 2, I want you to list your top 3 values. What is truly important to you, especially as you look forward to the next 10 years of your life? What is truly important to you? Write down those 3 things. And I want you to ask yourself, when you see those 3 words in front of you, ask yourself, does my life right now align with these 3 values that I've written down? Am I living these 3 values right now? Am I surrounded by people who are living these 3 values? And number 3, visualize. I want you to either when you wake up in the morning or when you're going to bed at night, close your eyes, and I want you to visualize what that could feel like as your ideal day. Or at the end of the day, visualize what would feeling lying in bed at the end of your ideal day feel like. What would you have done that day? Who would you have done it with? And what job or passion or purpose were you following that day? Reinvention, my friends, does not happen in a day. And just know that it's a process, and you don't need anyone's permission to reinvent yourself. All you need to do is decide, is this what I want for myself for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? If you are ready to go deeper and you would like my help in reinventing your life, your job, your business, I am here. And if you'd like to hop on a little discovery call or a strategy call with me, I would love to chat with you for 30 minutes and maybe leave. You can leave with a strategy that may start to move you forward. And don't forget the very fun quiz, Finding Out Your Success Superpower. Link is below, so make sure that you sign up to do that. Don't be afraid. Reinvention will change your life for the better. I can promise you that. Every time I have reinvented, my life has leveled up significantly. That's why I keep doing it. I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out with me today on Mindset Medicine. Remember, every step you take toward building a resilient mindset and creating harmony in your life will get you closer to your dreams and that transformation that you've been looking for. If today's episode hit home for you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback is our fuel. Spread the love. Share this podcast with friends and family. Tag me on Instagram at Catherine Lukedu Coaching. And if you're looking for more tips and resources, head over to CatherineLukeduCoaching.com. Stay connected, stay inspired, and keep living your very best life with harmony and purpose. And until next time, my friends, live boldly with purpose.